Welcome to Tell Me About It, a podcast by SLPs for everybody. And today we are talking about a kind of a big topic, I feel like. This is going to hit a lot of areas, but talking about parenting strategies, communicating with children, and some of the milestones that come along with this, and sometimes the things that we can misinterpret as developmentally inappropriate that are. And so our little cold open was talking about specifically negotiating with children.
Yeah.
And so I think this kind of came to light recently because Maggie and I have been having conversations about the differences between permissive parenting and authoritative parenting, or otherwise known as gentle parenting, and kind of how that word has gotten misconstrued I feel like for the detriment of children.
Absolutely to the detriment of children, and selfishly to the detriment of people who work with children. And so I want to say right at the top, I am not a parent.
Oh, no. We
are
we are not parents.
We are not parents. I am not. None of this is meant to be a judgment or a call out at all. It is meant to be informational and hopefully a little bit of like commiserating relatability of like, because sometimes working with kids in a professional capacity or in just a social capacity is hard. Like, they're little humans, they're new here. They're still figuring out how to be a person in society. And sometimes that goes sideways, and it can go sideways in some really funny ways. And it can go sideways in some ways that are only funny in hindsight, and in the moment are really hard and frustrating.
So, really hard and frustrating. This is also coming at a really timely point in like my personal life too. My father-in-law is a stay-at-home grandpa, and has never ever interacted with children, like ever. Like, he was gone for most of Jack's childhood just due to his job. And so he missed a lot of developmental stages. And so he has no idea how to interact with children. Love him dearly. He's a fabulous grandpa. But we had an appointment recently for my nephew, and he was like, what do I do with him during the daytime? And I was like, you don't know how to play. And he's like, I don't know how to play. And it can feel really weird for people who don't like set out to work with children to learn how to interact with children, because it's different, right? They're new here and we've been doing it a while as adults. And so it's just a different, it's a learned skill. I really think that interacting with children is kind of a learned skill. So we're here to commiserate with parents about that, because sometimes I feel like parenthood is sometimes the first time a lot of adults have interaction with children that's consistent, right? And so we're here to talk about it.
Yes. Yeah. And that is so true. I think some of that is just like the way that our society is built up. Some of it is like a bit of a gendered thing of like, I have been consistently working with kids younger than me since I was 12 or 13. Like, I basically went through puberty, and then the adults in my life were like, great, like now you can watch other kids. I'm also the oldest of four, and so like I remember just like growing up as a young child, because I'm 6 years older than my youngest brother. So like as a very young kid, my mom was pregnant and having babies, and all of my friends' moms were pregnant and having babies. And I was surrounded by babies and toddlers, even as a like kindergarten, first grade age kid, which is really all I can speak to, because that's kind of when like my like long-term memories came online. And so I can remember those times a little bit more. But I think part of just like being a girl, and also like my personality is a little, again, that like oldest daughter, like very caretakery. Like, I love being around kids. I love working with kids. I didn't always, actually. That was a little bit of a thing I grew into. As a teenager, I went through a phase where I was like, ugh, like,
or even
like a little too cool for school, I think, a little with that.
Too cool for kids. I did not set out into this field to work with kids, and I ended up falling in love with it. When I like first hit undergrad and grad school, I was like, I want to do adult neuro rehab. And then I got into a placement with it, and I was like, wow, not for me. But I got into a school placement. Oh, I just spit all over. I got into my school placement and had a blast. And that's when I was like, oh, I really enjoy working with kids. And then really started to seek that out as a career path for myself. And so had I not sought this out, I would not be interacting with children in a daily capacity as much as I do. This is a conversation I know you have with Turner, because he works in a job that has no kids, and my
Yes.
husband works in a job that has no kids. And the amount of interaction that they have with children is just limited. And so,
Very
yeah.
limited.
Mhm.
I'm really proud of my husband because so we have a niece and a nephew my nephew is almost 2.5. So uh, they're very, very young, and he's getting a lot better at being around very small children and infants and toddlers. I think at first I thought that he was just kind of like, kids, like, I'm too cool for school, like, I don't want to. Why do I keep saying that? That's such an old person thing. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, at first I thought it was just kind of like an attitude thing. And then after a while, I was like, oh no, like, you've literally just never been around children.
I think about a video, it was kind of a meme, and then my husband quotes it all the time when interacting with children, where it's like, I can't even remember what it's from, but it's like an adult and like an 11-year-old, and he's like, "You want a beer?" And he's like, "I'm 12."
Yes,
Um,
no, I think about that audio all the time, and I've sent it to Turner. I'm like, this is you. Like,
that is Jack.
like,
And
you
Jack
want a
makes that
beer?
joke
I'm
all the
4.
time. Right. Jack
And
makes
so
that joke all the time. And I'm like, I know it's coming from a place of you like making fun of the fact that you don't know how to like have a normal conversation with a child. But like, dude.
I know. Well, and I think that a lot of people, like, just that lack of exposure, the fact that kids are so different from adults, they are developing skills.
Oh,
I say,
yeah.
like, all the time, I say, like, kids are new here. They are learning, they
Yes.
are growing and developing. Kids are not dumb, they're not stupid. They're very smart. They're just learning. Like, and so because of that, there is a different way you have to interact with kids. You can't interact with them the same way as adults because it's just not going to work out.
So, yeah, adults and children are just at such developmentally different levels. And one of the most fascinating ways that I think that's exemplified is through play. Play is how children learn, and adults effectively stop playing very quickly.
Which
um,
could be a whole other topic about how, like, we as adults, I think, still need play, and the
I
fact that
agree
we
with
don't
that.
have it. And I'm not
I
talking always like imaginative play, like with Barbies or whatever. Like, that's not
but
really what
things
I'm
like
saying here.
D&D, like you and I are such
Yes,
huge nerds. But
huge.
like the theater of the mind and like the imaginative play truly that comes from a tabletop role playing game like that is so fun, and it's such a creative outlet. Like
Yeah,
there's such stress release that comes from like engaging in recreational hobbies like that.
yeah.
Even like we have board game nights at our house, and like that's fun. Or
Even
like we
just like
do video game nights.
unstructured. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I had a friend over with no plan to do
Mhm.
something, of
Yeah.
just, which, like, even up until in college, actually, with like a really close friend of mine, we would just hang out unstructured and, like, essentially play. Like,
Yeah.
we would talk and have conversations, but then things would come up and we would go do an activity together, or we would like do a craft and just chat, and
Mhm.
like, that is so enriching even to adults. But
Yes.
to your point, it looks very different
Very
for
different.
kids, and play is essential for children.
It's how children make sense of the world. It's how they like process the things that have happened to them, the things that they've witnessed or things that they're exploring within themselves. Like it's play is so important.
Yep.
And so but it's yeah, it's very different than adults. And I remember going through grad school and having to learn how to play like a kid. And it being weird. And
It
that's what I
took
tell
me,
parents. That's what I
yeah,
tell parents. It's weird and it's going to feel weird and you're going to feel unnatural because it is unnatural for you. However, making this attempt is so important for your connection with your child. And
it
so
took me a while to learn how to play again.
yeah. Mhm.
As a therapist and as a early childhood therapist, I love early intervention. I've talked about it before. I love that age group, and that is big on play. That's pretty much all they're doing. And so it took me a really long time to learn how to get down on the floor with toys and play.
Yeah. Mhm.
um, yeah, I eventually kind
Mhm.
of figured it out, but it took a while. It feels very unnatural as an adult.
Yes. It feels you have to get over, like, I feel silly part of it because there's a lot of, like you have, like, a third person perspective of yourself, and you're like, "What am I doing right now?" Like, I had a moment in grad school. I was doing feeding therapy at one of my outplacements, and the child was just working on exposure and interacting with foods that were non-preferred, and so we had made a shredded cheese mountain with little, like, dinosaur nuggets, and I had a moment where I was like, "Let's go up," with a chicken nugget in my hand that was shaped like a dinosaur, and I was
Totally.
like, "I'm 22." Like and then I had, like, a moment where I was like, "Move that aside, like, no, this is for the good of the children," and I was like, "Yeah, I am getting a degree that cost me a lot of money to be able to, like, move this chicken nugget up in shredded cheese mountain," and he liked it, and then he ate some of the cheese, so, like, heck
Heck
yeah.
yeah. So it worked, is what I'm hearing.
But so it worked, but I did have a moment where I was like, "What
Yeah.
is happening?"
Well, and I actually posted a reel on my my other Instagram account
When I
recently.
tell you, is it the one with the bubble one where it's like,
Yes.
"Yeah, everybody feels too." That made me emotional. Like, I'm
Really?
so yes, that made me emotional. You feel so goofy sometimes working with children, and, like, I really feel like a circus most of the time. Like, I have plates spinning, I've got, like, trumpets blaring, like, it's, like, quite an act to keep up, and there's such a like, I don't know, I just have a real reverence for it because I love childhood, right? That is something
Yes.
that's so special, and so in working with kids in that stage of life is so special, and you feel so goofy as an adult until you don't.
So goofy.
And until you don't, and that has become special to me, if that makes sense. So,
And
oh,
the great irony of that reel is that I almost didn't post it because I felt so silly. I was watching the footage back and I was like, it's a reel about feeling stupid and manual overriding that feeling for for your job. And I was watching the footage and I was like, I look so stupid. And I almost didn't post it. And I did. And I'm glad that I did because I think that it is something really relatable for people that work with kids a lot of like, you feel like your work doesn't matter, or you feel like I have kind of struggled with this. I feel like people don't perceive me as a
mm,
scientist, as a specialist,
oh,
as an expert
wow.
because my job is filled with Play-Doh and bubbles and
When I tell
singing
you
songs.
when I tell you I am the bubble girl at school, I love bubbles. I have 2 different bubble machines and manual bubbles because I love them, and they provide such opportunities for communication, and there's so much science. It's crazy for something as whimsical and goofy as bubbles. I There's so much science behind that, specifically when it comes to communication, and I had to explain that to a teacher recently, and I'm glad she asked. Like, it was we had a can you hear Buddy, like, beating on the door to get in because he's
No.
like and so anyways, I'll finish this thought and then I'll let him in. Back to the
Yeah.
chart. I was explaining this to a teacher recently, because we had a surprise attendance day, and so we brought out bubble machines at the front and back door, so the kids who showed up at school today got, like, bubbles, like crazy bubble parties before they walked into school that day. It was really fun, really special, and I made the comment like, "Oh, like 80% of my job is bubbles," right? And she was like, "What? Why?" Great question. Let me explain it to you. We can work on requesting recurrence. We can work on more or again. We can work on go using bubbles. We can use adjectives like big or little or shiny or, pop action words like pop or things like that. And really went through kind of all the things that I can do with bubbles when it comes to communicating with a child. And on top of that, it's fun and it builds rapport. And there's nothing more productive as a therapist than having therapeutic rapport with a child. And she was like, "Oh, I had no idea that all of these things exist. I just thought you liked bubbles." No, girl. There's a lot of science back here.
There's a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So it can feel really silly and really unnatural to play with kids and to even just like interact with children because they
Yeah.
do communicate so differently. And there's a lot of software that hasn't come online yet. And like, especially for really young kids. So the way that you talk to them, especially in a leadership or like authority role, has to be different than how you talk to adults. You can't just expect
Yes.
them to know
Uh,
stuff.
Maggie, you say this all the time, and I think it is so important. They're new here,
They
right?
are new
And
here.
so they do not have the the tools to be able to handle situations like adults would. And I think we put a lot of expectations on children to be able to do so, and then get mad at them sometimes when they don't.
So yeah, we wanted to talk today about how some tips, some tricks of the trade from communication experts, how to communicate with children, how to provide consequences that make sense and are effective for kids, and what are some things that are developmentally expected or appropriate, and when that kind of goes outside of the realm of like, oh, this is a normal part of development, maybe to the point of like, there might be something else going on here. For kids, things like tantruming, things like disobedience or not listening, that kind of thing. So we wanted to talk about those things today, kind of from the perspective of speech therapy and people who professionally work with children, but are not themselves parents, because that relationship is different. So we can only really speak to the kind of like, kids are our coworkers. Like we professionally work with children, but are not moms. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I feel like this kind of conversation that I've had, I really do. One of my coworkers pointed this out. I've had friends in like every stage of life right now. And I have some friends right now who are either currently pregnant or have just recently had a baby. And that's been one of the conversations, has been like, Francie, what do I do with them? Or like, is this normal? Is this okay? Like, and I have one friend who's just killing the game right now. She just had a little guy recently, and he is itty bitty, and I mean like new, like 3 months. And she's doing awesome. And one of the things that she's doing is she talks to that man all the time. That man, he's 3 months old. She talks to that man all the time. But she texted me recently to be like, I just want to let you know that he's making like all of these sounds. And I was like, thank you for keeping me updated on this. Like, I love this for you. So anyways, yeah, if you're my friend and you have a baby, please text me about their milestones, because I'm so involved and I'm so happy for you.
And actually, this is a great, I want to touch on this really fast, because like I hear this a lot, and I kind of, as a speech therapist, it confuses me a little bit. As a person, as a normal person, I think I get where it's coming from, but this is it. So basically, like, I have heard parents say, like, oh, well, we never talked to them like they were a kid. We always just talked to them like they were an adult. And that's why like their vocabulary is so good. That's kind of like the vibe of it a lot, of like, or people who are like prospective parents, they'll say like, well, I don't want to baby talk. And I think what they are referring to is the kind of like cutesy, like oversimplified, like goo goo gaga type of.
You are getting into something that's really fascinating to me, and it's the difference between like parent-ese and then like baby talk, because those are two separate things. And they are different, and they both have vastly different developmental outcomes.
Yeah. And then there's the third option of like truly just speaking to your child like we are talking to each other right now, and not modifying your speech at all. There is a woman that I've seen on Instagram who has a really young baby who does that. She'll like film. I
love it. She's like, okay, so your nanny's not coming today because she called and said,
exactly that. And that is good. That's also good. So Francie, you use the term parent-ese. So the benefit of that, this is a phenomenon that language researchers have discovered across cultures, across languages. So it's a global kind of evolved mechanism to help teach baby humans language. It's really cool. It is a good thing. If you are unfamiliar with what it sounds like, think of Miss Rachel.
Miss Rachel, the queen of parent-ese. She
very much so.
And there's a ton of support that this helps babies with language acquisition, the learning of language when you speak in a slower rate that has a lot of inflectional pitch. And that's what she does. And so much repetition. When I think about Miss Rachel, she does such a beautiful job of being like, put it in, and like she's very sing-songy with it. And so that helps so much with babies' little brains trying to figure out things like pitch, things like those early sounds, like babies are starting to code in the speech sounds of our language. I believe that actually starts like in utero, where they
It
start becoming
does.
aware of language in utero.
Once their
Um,
like auditory system comes online in the womb, they are
mhm,
learning the building blocks of language, which is
mhm.
crazy, but
Crazy.
like very cool. Yeah.
So cool. So cool. And so speaking in this way helps give them extra time and differentiation to be able to better encode language into their little brains. And
Yeah.
so it's just
They're
so
figuring
fascinating.
out word boundaries because
Mhm.
when we speak, we don't put spaces in between our words. When you say a sentence, it is a string of continuous sound and it only sounds like separate words to us because we know what the separate words mean. To a baby who hasn't learned language yet, their brain is literally running statistics on when they hear what kind of sound and is figuring out the boundaries of words so that they can figure out the meanings of those words. It's so cool. I love infant language development as well. I'm a huge nerd about it. But
Mhm.
parent ease is something that really, really helps that process along. So there's nothing wrong with talking to your baby like they are also an adult. Sometimes I I would never recommend to a parent to eliminate that parentese, that like kind of sing-songy Miss Rachel type speech. And again, we've observed this across cultures and across languages, so it is natural. It's probably going to feel very natural and comfortable to you.
And this gets back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is it's going to feel weird, but it's not baby talking. And I want to talk about the difference between parent ease and baby talking real fast, because baby talking is when you are changing the grammar, changing the speech sounds that you use to be more like a baby. So like, oh, hold on, I gotta get like really in the mindset.
Yeah, do it.
I hope you understand, as a speech therapist, I've eliminated the ability to baby talk out of my brain. Like I have to like really focus on like things that I have heard online that I'm like, no, that's not right. Because it
Yeah.
is so unnatural for me at this point to be like, oh, do you, I baby want baba, or like I'm trying to think of like other like um
Like if they're saying like blankie or blanket, saying like blankie,
oh, you want your blankie? Baby want
that
your
kind of thing.
blankie. Oh my goodness, baby got blankie.
Yeah.
Oh, think about the way that you would talk to a dog. You know that there's that like a grammatical
Yeah.
doggo language of like the 2010s. You know what I mean? He has donut, like, or whatever, the like the dog. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. When you are messing up the grammar or the speech sounds, teeths, like if you're like, oh, you're cutting teeth, oh, the teeths are
Yeah.
coming in. Strike that.
I,
Um,
to play baby talk advocate for a second, I don't think that is wrong as long as it is only a little bit.
Only a little bit.
If
If
that's
everybody loves like
100% of the way that you're talking to your kid, it's not doing them any favors, but that's that it is very unlikely for that to be 100% of the speech that
that's
they are
true.
hearing.
And
So
I'm just being hateful because I am. And so
we are certified haters on
and please no, this is okay. Clinician Francie's coming back out for a second. Having somebody talk to your child in this baby talk is not going to permanently mess up your child. It takes
no.
like no. So like
It's
don't
not
let us
going to
be like
cause a language
never
disorder.
do this. Yeah, no, it's not going to cause a
No.
language disorder. However, it's also like if you're trying to optimize your baby's language acquisition, it's probably best to avoid it for the most part.
Yeah.
And so
I don't think there's anything wrong with baby talk. I think that like it's not like, again, that parentese thing is really like the best way to go about talking to your baby. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of like silly, goofy, because I also think that it naturally fades with time. So like I think that most parents and most like I think it just kind of goes away on its own. I don't think it stays like no one is sitting there talking to their 8-year-old like that. You know what I mean? Like it's it's something that I'm like, you're doing that instinctively because they're small and cute. And like I even do that with my niece and nephew. Like not like, you know, to the nth degree, but like I'll do a little bit of like a silly voice or something like that, or like
And
that kind of
here's the
thing.
thing, it's not the silly voice, it's the syntax and the speech sounds, like,
Oh, okay.
flipping. That's what bothers me about it, is that, like, if we're here to model language for our child, like, I want to model correct language, and so if we're, like, mixing up grammar tenses, like saying, "Oh, he have it," or "He has it," and using the wrong version of that, um, or what is it? Oh, I has I'm trying to think, there's, like, really cringy, like, 2010s internet slang.
You're like describing the like I can has cheeseburger cat things.
Yes, yes, or like using gliding, so like, "Oh, the wabbit, you want your wabbit?" Like, I understand it's fun, they're cute, but, like, at the same time, like, you can also use parentheses to go, "A rabbit," and it's gonna have the same effect, or it's
Yeah,
gonna have a better effect, and it still has that, like, whimsy and, like, all of that verbal affection that you want to give to a little baby, and
very
so
true.
um, yeah, not the silly voices, it's the messing up of speech sounds. I don't know, that's just a pet peeve of mine. Once again, I'm not a parent, so,
It's
like,
an
I
SLP.
might it's an SL peeve, girl, and I got a few. So, yeah, one of my SL peeves, it's once again, it doesn't make you a bad parent, you're not doing it wrong, you're not gonna permanently mess them up. It's just something that, like, it's kinda like a fly in the room for me where I'm like, "Man, there's a fly in here. That's kinda bothersome." But I'm like, it's not enough for me to be like, "Ah!" Right?
Totally.
So
Yeah. So that is like before your child even begins to talk.
Mhm.
You got to be talking to them. And there's
Read
a
to
couple
them.
ways to do
Read
it.
to them. Read to
Reading to them is a
them.
huge thing.
You can start
Um,
reading to your baby while pregnant. Like,
yes.
books are wonderful, and it's a wonderful way to teach language and also teach literacy, and, like, even before you think that you would, like, have a child acquire literacy, knowing how to operate a book is so important. That we, have it the right direction, we open the pages, we move left to right, huge skills that you don't realize that you're teaching just by reading to them, right?
And even for really little kids, because a lot of children's books actually require way more attention span than kids of
Mm,
that target age have. And
yeah.
so with my niece and nephew, I will have them in my lap and open the book and maybe touch one thing on each page and say one word and turn the page. Like, especially with my niece who's 1, she's not going to sit there while I read every single word. She's going to want to grab the pages, want to like touch and explore the book. She's going to want to turn the pages really quickly. And that's developmentally appropriate. So I will really just like point out one thing on each page and label it
Label
and then move on, and go to the next one. And so and that's good because it's kind of giving her exposure to that pre-literacy skills and stuff. But yeah, talking about just straight up language exposure, reading is a great way to get that in. And I do not mean I don't mean like YouTube story time or like Tony's, like those kinds of things. I think these are great tools for sometimes. They're great toys for sometimes. It can maybe be like a nice wind down thing or a nice little treat. If you need a break and you're tired, put on, like, have them pop into Tony or do a YouTube story time, no big deal. But it cannot be the only way that they are exposed to stories and books, because those pre-literacy skills are really important. And also the social aspect of reading a book together is really important. So again, not hating on those things at all. Sometimes we all just need a freaking break for a second. Hop on a YouTube story time. I will not begrudge you that at all. It just can't be 100% of the exposure to books that your kiddo is getting.
Absolutely. And then once we kind of get into the more kind of talkative phase, I feel like I'm trying to remember what it is. How many words should we have by 1? It keeps changing.
Um,
What's our range?
so I'm not sure the exact word range at 1. It can vary pretty wildly. You do want to hear first word around 9 to 12 months.
Mhm.
9 would be kind of on the early side. 12, we definitely want to hear first word around then. And this can be mama, dada. It can even be like shortened words or approximations like
Uh-huh.
bubba for brother or
Mhm.
baba for bottle. I would accept those as a speech therapist as like a first word. Bubba,
Absolutely. I'm
totally a
also
first word.
looking for so communication and language is so much more than just talking. We're also looking for, can they point and wave and blow kisses and things like that. That's also what we're
Yes.
looking for, kind of around this like age of 1 type situation.
100%. And those gestures that you're talking about, I would be looking for
Even
earlier
earlier.
than 1. Clapping, waving, pointing is a big one. So if we're not hearing first words by 1, the first thing I would want to know is, are they doing gestures? Are they waving when somebody leaves the room or enters the room? Are they clapping? Even just like that kind of like random clapping that you'll see little babies do sometimes, where they're at the dinner table with their family and they'll like kind of look around and then just start clapping and everyone goes, oh, yay. That's social. That is communication, even though it seems kind of silly and pointless. That is the baby learning. If I do this gesture that means happiness and excitement, people in my environment give that back to me. And that is huge.
I would also include dancing. If they enjoy dancing with you, that's another kind of social thing. We're enjoying this music thing together. I'm looking at you, we're dancing kind of situation too. That's another kind of communicative thing that I'd be like, interesting.
Yeah.
If they are doing.
So yeah, by 9 to 12 months, we should absolutely have some of those gestures on board. If not, it is time to see a speech therapist. And then, yeah, by the milestone for 2 for language is a vocabulary of at least 50 words and putting together 2-word utterances or phrases. So saying like, mommy, go. Friendly reminder that milestones, at least on ASHA's website, are 25th percentile. We talked about percentiles a couple episodes back in our staff episode, but what that means is that if it's the 25th percentile, 75% of kids that age are already doing that or more. So milestones are kind of like they're like a baseline of like, we want to see at least this, not a kind of like a goal to shoot for. Yeah. So what ideally 50 words and 2-word utterances by 2 is kind of the bare minimum of what we would want to see from a 2-year-old. I will always say, especially for people who have not spent a lot of time around kids, you should be able to have a conversation with a 2-year-old, not simple. A complicated one. Yeah, you're not talking about like detailed plans for the future, or like, you know, you're not talking about like opinions on Taylor Swift's latest album or what. Like you are having very simple conversations of like what they want, what they need, things they see in their environment, that kind of thing. So that is kind of where I would ideally want a 2-year-old to be. And if they're not there, I would maybe suggest seeking out some extra support, just to make sure that they have a good foundation for language going forward, because it only gets more complicated from there.
It only gets more complicated from there. And then you have the speech side of things, like, but language aside, then we have the speech side of things. There are speech sounds that are considered to be developmentally appropriate errors. And a lot of those errors you will see in that early range because they're learning. They're learning how their little brains are getting all of the little sounds sorted into the right categories for things, and getting that kind of system set up. And so at what age, Maggie? This would be a good question, because I have never worked in the early childhood center. Or like in that like early like 5 and under range. What speech sounds, obviously fronting and stuff like that, but what speech sounds are you listening for at that range to be like
So I would definitely be listening for those early coming sounds like b, w, d. But more importantly, by 3 to 4 years old, I think it's by 4. I did 5 with my hand. I think by 4, the expectation is that most people understand what your child is saying. So if we are working with a preschooler, like a 3 to 4-year-old, that only mom can understand, or like sister has to translate for all the time, or family can understand what they're saying, but grandma and grandpa have a really hard time. That is a concern to me. So by three is pretty young. By 3, you should understand pretty much everything they're saying. And I'm not saying it should be sound perfect. I'm saying you should understand what they're saying. By 4 to 5, people outside the family. So everyone should be able to understand. Again, not exactly the sounds are perfect, but should be intelligible to pretty much anybody. If that's not happening, that would indicate to me that there's some kind of speech sound something going on. And speech sound errors are really common for little kids. We know the classic like L's and R's and S's and THs is another big one. Those are kind of the classic, more complicated sounds that just develop later. So I'm not freaked out by a 4-year-old that can't say there are sounds. I am nervous if it's a 4-year-old that nobody outside of the family can understand, or if a kid shows up to kindergarten and their teacher cannot understand them. Teachers, especially kindergarten teachers, are really good at understanding little kids' speech. So if there's a kindergarten teacher that's like, I have no idea what this kid's saying, I'm like, whoa, okay, let me get eyes on them because something's going on. So along with that, like we've kind of talked about some of these like building blocks, these early developing, early coming skills. So what happens behaviorally when that kind of stuff breaks down?
Yeah. So sorry, I just lost my whole train of thought. I was looking something up.
Fine.
The reason why I'm looking something up right now, which is kind of like psychological milestones for children. Because I know there's like a whole phase about autonomy. There's a whole phase about like just a couple other things. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
I know that. So we hear kind of colloquially like the terrible twos type of deal. And that is because between the ages of 2 and 3, kids are figuring out, wait a second, I'm my own person and I can affect my environment. That's like a cognitive stage that they go through.
Yes, cognitive stages. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, cognitive stages.
Hold on. You keep talking.
Yeah, so
have it a moment.
You're fine. So that is good and natural for a 2 to 3-year-old to seem to an adult really self-centered. Like you're gonna hear a lot of me, you're gonna hear a lot of mine, you're gonna hear a lot of no. And as frustrating as that is as an adult, it is developmentally appropriate for a child. So they are not being selfish if they have a hard time sharing. They're not being defiant. They are going through a cognitive development of the sense of self.
Yes. I actually looked it up. So it's Piaget's like theory of cognitive development. I really have been digging back to grad school this week, just like in my like professional life too. I've been like, so it's been a real test this week. So the pre-operational stage is from ages 2 to 7. And at the beginning of the stage, the child does not use operations or set of logical rules. So thinking is influenced by how things look or appear rather than logical reasoning. So you're not going to reason with a 2-year-old. They don't have that hardware yet. Like they don't have the skill yet or that tool. So for example, a child might think a tall, thin glass contains more liquid than a short, wide glass, even though they contain them both. Also important, the child views the world and thinks everybody else views it as they do. They do not have that theory of mind yet to think that, or to realize that other people are not thinking what they are thinking. So that gets into, this is where I think people say like, oh, they're so egotistical or like they're so manipulative or whatever. They're just thinking everybody else knows what they know.
This is another, I feel like this is why you'll see those videos sometimes that are like things that made my toddler cry this week, which are really funny. That the glass example you were doing, I think one that's a little bit more real life is okay, you give sibling a graham cracker and theirs it's broken in half.
The banana is broken.
Yes, well you give so you give older sibling a graham cracker, it's broken in half. You give toddler a graham cracker that's whole, but then they start screaming because sibling has 2 graham crackers. And it's the same amount, but they know that 2 is bigger than 1. And so they think they got less and they got cheated.
And now they're crying and screaming.
And you are left being like, I gave you the same amount of cracker. And so that is a again, like I keep using this word, like that is a software issue. Like they are still
Up here, not there yet.
truly, like they are still learning and developing that, like, even though their sibling's cracker was broken in half, just because there's two pieces doesn't mean it's more than the one that they received. And so, but in the moment, that is so frustrating. And especially if, like, okay, you're trying to get your kids a snack, you're probably hungry yourself, your coffee is still sitting in the microwave from when you heated it up the last time and you haven't been able to go get it yet. And like now your toddler is crying because they have less cracker than your other toddler. And like, oh my goodness, in the moment, I'm sure that is infuriating. But it's one of those things that, like, at least for me, it helps in those hard moments to know, like, they are new here. They're little. Their brain is not there yet.
They've been doing this for 2 years, you know? I have to remind myself all the time that, like, my biggest, like, I can't be beefing with a 7-year-old.
My arch nemesis cannot be a first grader.
Cannot be a first grader.
Cannot
I
be.
really can. And then I have to remind myself, oh, they've only been doing this for 7 years. I've been doing this for 26. Like, they give them grace. They're new here.
Yeah. So that's one of those that I feel like that one, that pre-operational kind of stuff where they're still learning those concepts. And then the autonomy thing of, like, when they snatch a toy and say, mine. Like, yes, that is a behavior that needs to be redirected and corrected, because we can't behave like that with people. It's not kind, it's not respectful. So we do need to teach an alternate. We need to teach them how to ask. We need to teach them how to wait. That all comes into play, but it is developmentally appropriate to snatch and say mine.
If you really think that your lived experience as a 2-year-old is the only thing going on, like you are the whole world, you won't understand why another child has the toy you want, because that's mine. That's just where their brains are at, and they will get there eventually. But yeah, it takes gentle redirection and a little bit of grace to realize that they really do think they're the center of the world.
Yeah. And again, it's not in an egotistical way where, like, if an adult thinks they're the center of the world, that adult sucks. But like if a child, especially a really young kid, thinks the world revolves around them, there's still time to teach them.
There's still time. And
to teach them kindly that the world, unfortunately, does not revolve around them.
That stage goes until 7, right? So, and obviously the skills get more advanced and they get better with it as they get closer to 7, but like that's a long time.
Yeah. And actually, this leads us into talking about tantrums, because tantruming, the like acceptable developmental age for tantruming, kind of fits within that pre-operational stage. So tantruming is a developmentally appropriate thing that happens. It's not abnormal for little kids to have tantrums sometimes. If they're tantruming all the time, or if they're tantruming for a long time, and cannot calm down, and it's happening over and over, or if they are like getting up into that like 5, 6, 7, and we're still having tantrums, then that's like, okay, this is outside of the realm of like what's developmental and expected, and now we should probably talk to a doctor about it. But for little kids, it is perfectly normal for a 3-year-old to tantrum about something. And yeah, that most of the time they last a couple of minutes, up to like 15, 20 minutes. That's considered normal. It is frustrating. It can be embarrassing and overwhelming, especially if it happens in public. And so I'm sure that it kind of sucks to sit there as a parent and listen to 2 childless women tell you that tantrums are normal when you're like, I'm literally just trying to make it through Walmart and my 3-year-old's on the ground. It is developmentally appropriate. And the idea is that they grow out of it. So
yes. And also trying to help kind of ease through those tantrums when they're in a stage of kind of like fight or flight when they have a tantrum, right? Their nervous systems are freaking out. They're freaking out. They're, once again, 2, and things are weird. And so one of the best things I think can help through lower your language level. I think sometimes using just 1 or 2 words to help get through a tantrum will be advantageous for you, because if your child's freaking out and you keep just like blah, 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 talking at them, it's only going to freak them out more and they're not going to hear you.
Yeah.
So making sure that you stay calm in those moments and then lower your language level will help to kind of ease through it. And I really hate that they have to happen. And I know it's so frustrating. But that's my little bit of advice, to be like, yep, this could be a tool in your tool belt to help kind of move through those situations.
I think that you brought up something really important, and you touched on this a little earlier too, is that kids that are in this developmental stage cannot be reasoned with.
No.
Because we're not too reasoning yet. And so when we see examples of like gentle parenting, which I think is kind of the rebrand, which in my opinion has been less than a glowing success, but it's, authoritative parenting. A lot of it has to do with explaining and talking and all of this stuff. That's great. I love that for when kids
That's great for a 10-year-old. This is not great for a 2-year-old.
So when we're talking about a preschooler, even like a 3 or 4-year-old, or into 5, like it's still kind of normal and expected for a 5-year-old to tantrum. Even an older kid that is getting better at reasoning and is gaining more of that theory of mind, because really little kids don't have theory of mind. We expect that to come online around, I think it's like 3 or 4. It's pretty young. So it's not in a complex way.
No. But we start being able to realize that I think it's around like 5 or 6, where we start realizing that like other people are having different thoughts than I am. And one of the ways that children develop that is through imaginative play and having different characters in their play schemes. And so, it's like 5 or 6.
Okay. But, so in a tantrum, what you don't want to do is, like you're saying, throw a bunch of language at them. First of all, they're not listening. They're busy tantruming, so they're not hearing what you're saying. Second of all, like, they're not even developmentally ready to have that conversation. So I think that one thing we can do as adults is model what it looks like to calm down, model remaining calm. Because if a kid is way up here and you match their energy, that's only going to send them further, right? And so stay as calm as possible. And you don't have to be soft and happy, just calm. You can be neutral.
Neutral's honestly probably preferred.
And making sure that, like, after the kid has calmed down, talking about like, you were really upset. I'm proud of you for putting your shoes back on and coming with me to the car. Like like, and praising what they did well and reminding them that you love them and big feelings happen, and then moving on, because tantrums happen sometimes. But yeah, it can be really hard. And I think our natural reaction as adults who have a lot of language is to put more language on the situation, but it can sometimes be like putting lighter fluid on a fire, of just like, now you're giving them a bunch of input that they don't understand and have no way to deal with. So yeah, slam your language to the ground, 1 or 2 words. Once the tantrum is over, then you can start talking a little bit more. But in the moment, keep it simple.
Absolutely. And as we start getting into kind of those early elementaries, when I'm thinking about behavior now and we're starting to give choices, I'm trying to think of when cause and effect starts to develop. Obviously, we get it through play a little bit very early, where like if I hit this toy, something pops, but like true like cause and effect reasoning, I'm wondering when that starts to develop, because I feel like that's where a lot of like this authoritative parenting kind of comes from, is being able to like determine natural consequences. And that's kind of where I'm going with this conversation, is the use of natural consequences.
Let's look it up, because I am not 100% sure. I believe so. And in my opinion, natural consequences are, or at least a related consequence. So sometimes there's not really a natural consequence.
The natural consequence to climbing too high is falling. Like, that's a natural consequence. However, the natural consequence or the more logical consequence, I guess, for like using markers on the wall would be to clean the wall, right?
Yeah.
So that's not
That's
necessarily a natural situation that happens, but it is the logical consequence.
yes. And sometimes like a natural consequence is not appropriate to allow. So like you're
Yeah.
saying, if they're climbing on something, playground equipment that is too high and they could
Mhm.
seriously injure themselves by falling,
Yeah.
don't let them fall
Do
for
it.
the sake of it being a natural
The
consequence.
natural
Like
consequence is that I'm taking you down, like
the natural consequence is now we don't get to play in this part of the playground because that's
Mhm.
unsafe, you know? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, natural consequence isn't always direct cause and effect. Because
Mhm.
again, you wouldn't let a kid put their hand on a stove
Yeah.
if it to learn that it's hot, right? Like
Thinking it's between like 7 and 11 to start developing kind of hypothesis abilities.
oh, okay. So if you're
And then
talking
also,
about yeah,
uh,
so if you're talking about kind of the reasoning of like if you do
yes,
this, what will happen?
happen. Yes,
That is
because
later.
I do think that a lot of recommendations say to like do the if then this, but that ability is a much later skill than sometimes what I see it being used for a little earlier, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And it is good to model these stages
mhm.
before
Oh,
they
absolutely.
come on board. So like
Mhm.
just because a kid is and again these we're referencing Piaget's stages a lot, who is a child psychology researcher from the 20th century. These things are backed by research, but it is still like it's
They're
not
flexible.
law, you know?
There's also several different theories, right? There's
There are
tons of
several.
different, specifically, I know Maggie and I had to do a lot of research on them in grad school, specifically for language acquisition and also like just child psychology. There's tons of different perspectives. We're just using Piaget's today. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, so if we're kind of referencing this as like an overarching framework, this is a good guideline for how cognitive skills kind of develop. It's not law. Kids may um,
they're flexible.
they
Kids,
may move up to a stage a little earlier. They may
they made a little
be a
later.
little behind, yeah, in like behind in that development. So uh, but yeah, logical thought, that concrete operational, is about 7 to 11 years. Symbolic thought, in that pre-operational stage, they are especially to the end of that. So, and I think school
Mhm.
also really helps
Really helps with
kids
that.
get a hold of some of these cognitive stages just because they are um, exposed to more structure.
Mhm.
And kind of helps them realize like, oh, first this happens, then this happens. The second thing is a result of the first thing. Like
Yes.
they're just kind of
That
exposed
kind of
to
cause
that
effect. Yeah. Mhm.
in a really structured way. Which I think is a good thing. And not to say if a kid's homeschooled or does some kind of
No.
other learning, they are not ever exposed to that. I just think that like traditional schooling is really set up for that because it is so structured. So, you know, um, but yeah, the um, giving lots and lots of choices for things. Do we want to talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit?
just
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of things that make communication successful with children, specifically when we have really willful children who want things to be their way. Girl, I want things to be my way all the time, always, because I think I'm right most of the time, right? And that's just how it is, right? Everybody wants what they want. Unfortunately, that can't always happen, right? I want $1 million, but unfortunately, I work in the public schools. So um, with that, I find that one of my strategies I come back to a lot is giving set choices for children and kind of giving the array of things that they are allowed to do in the speech room and then letting them have the kind of autonomy to make that choice for themselves to just support their feeling of like I'm in control of the situation for myself, but doing it in a way that is safe and structured and acceptable in the speech room. And so what that looks like for me is I use a lot of like games in the speech room. I'm a game SLP. I just am. And I like to play. And like I try to incorporate as much play-based therapy in the speech room as I can in the schools. It's harder, don't get me wrong. But I think it's just so good for brains. But tangent. Um, with that, I have a menu that my kids select from, and that changes every week. These are the games that I'm cool with playing this week. You guys get to pick whatever the game is. Um, and that allows for them to feel like I have control when I'm in the speech room, but it also allows me to keep my sanity, because I cannot be a short order kitchen, or I can't do that. I've done that in the past. Boy, howdy, did I make mistakes with that. Where we're wanting this game and then this game and then this game, and we're switching constantly, and we just want what we want because we want it now. And that drives me up the wall, and it
Yeah.
stresses me out. And then I can't be a good therapist because I'm stressed out.
And I think something that you're touching on is the difference between child-led and child
Mhm.
in
In
charge.
charge.
So
Such an important distinction there, because I feel like oftentimes, kind of like where gentle parenting started off as authoritative and then moved into permissive, same thing can happen with the therapy space and being child-led to child in charge.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I get that, just as an aside about gentle parenting, I get that that is not what gentle parenting is supposed to be about. I get it's not supposed to represent permissive parenting, and that the term gentle parenting is meant to represent authoritative parenting. However, we have to admit that it has kind of taken on a life of its own, I think, through social media, and has morphed into a version of permissive parenting.
Which, just the like quick skinny on those, there's whole careers dedicated to all of like parenting styles and things like that. So this is going to be my 20 words or less version, which is authoritative parenting is a parenting style that has very high affection for your child and very high expectation as well. And you have to have both. With I'm holding my child to expectations, and I'm going to love you through us learning those expectations. Permissive parenting is you have that super high affection for your child and very low expectations. And so we are not seeing them held to kind of any boundaries or standards, but they're still getting so much love that it's making things permissive, right? Or behaviors permissive. On the other side of that, you have authoritarian parenting, which is low affection, high expectation, which can be kind of a colder relationship. And then you also have neglectful parenting, which is no affection, no expectation. We don't often talk about those. I feel like right now in the pop psychology sphere, we're kind of talking about authoritative versus permissive right now. But that's kind of the pundit square of parenting styles, if that makes sense. So when we're talking about that, that's what we're talking about, is having very high affection for your child, but also following through on those expectations and having very rigid boundaries for your child, versus having no boundaries whatsoever.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And I know something else we kind of wanted to talk about today too, is that kids need boundaries.
Kids need boundaries.
It's not just that like, oh, you need to set and hold boundaries because it makes your life easier. It does, but kids need boundaries to learn. Like, we live in a society, and kids have to learn how to behave in that society so that they keep themselves and others safe. It's not even just about like conformity. It's about safety and setting themselves up for success within the society that exists. And if we don't set boundaries as adults and teach kids those skills, we're setting them up for failure.
I agree.
And so
going back to the choices thing, that's one of the ways that I teach boundaries, is like, these are the things that we can do versus the things that we can't do. And then holding to that.
I've definitely seen kids go through like a negotiation stage of like, especially if one of the choices that I offer is, or like what they want is not one of the choices that I offer. So like, if they know that I have a game that's not an option right now for whatever reason, they'll ask for it. Sometimes they'll say like, you know what? Yeah, that's okay. We can play this game today. Other times I'll say like, that's not a choice today. I need you to pick something else.
And so you are hitting on something that I have been talking about a lot at school recently, which is intermittent rewards. One of the most effective ways to teach something is called intermittent rewards. And the best comparison for this is like a slot machine. You are putting money in and you are pulling that lever, and only sometimes do you get money back. The same thing goes for childhood. If like you ask for something and you get it sometimes, that's super effective. They're going to keep trying it because I got that successful thing one time. So be mindful about when you are cool with giving, like a giving in on a boundary, because they will keep trying to press that because they got something from it one time.
Absolutely. And that is another like behavioral thing that is natural. Like they're not doing it to be manipulative. They're doing it because that's what intermittent reward teaches. So I know that I have kind of set myself up for that some days. I think that kids going through a negotiation phase is also natural, especially
that you can support.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just totally cut you off again. It's something that you can support. Not a negotiation is not a bad thing. No. So long as you handle it correctly.
Yeah. I do think that something that's important for kids to be taught, though, is that negotiation is not always an option. Sometimes for stuff like picking out a game, we can negotiate. We can negotiate a game that wasn't on the menu, right? We might be able to talk our way through that. We cannot negotiate safety stuff. We cannot negotiate, well, I don't want to wear pants to school today. We cannot negotiate seatbelts. Like there's things that like, yes, we can sometimes offer choices to get through a tough moment where like the kid is kind of digging their heels in for whatever reason. Maybe they're really upset. Maybe they're super tired. Maybe they're nervous and they need some support to help move on to the next thing. Sometimes choices can be really helpful, but there are not always choices in life. So I would recommend for parents and other people that work with kids a lot, use giving choices as a tool, but it doesn't need to be every time.
It doesn't need to be every time, but there is a way that you can incorporate choices. If you're like, our objective is putting our seatbelt on, you are not putting your seatbelt on. So your choices are put it on now or in 15 seconds. And then setting a timer. Yeah, those are your two options. We have to put our seatbelt on. We can do this now, or we can do this in 15 seconds. And then if they don't make a choice, this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, I have to make that choice for your safety. And so you can choose or I can choose, but if I choose, I'm putting your seatbelt on now.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say you choose or I will choose for you a lot of times. And then I could probably be a little bit better about highlighting when I am going to choose and also say what my choice will be. But yeah, because that is just like when everything is a multiple choice question, that is leading, kind of edging into the child in charge type of a thing where like it is good to make sure that kids feel respected and feel like they have some agency. But like at the end of the day, the adult is the authority in the room, and that the kid has to know and respect that too. So
no, I completely agree with that. I had a really good way to wrap this up and I can't remember what it was now. Oh man.
We were talking about choices. What was another kind of one of the bigger gentle parenting thing that productive struggle. I wanted to talk about productive struggle for a little bit.
Yes. Oh, so this one's hard for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. This one's hard for me. I have to like literally I bite my lip or like touch my face to stop myself from doing this. So you talk.
Yes. So productive struggle is this idea that and I will use this example of like a physical therapy intensive for a kid with cerebral palsy, which is a very niche example, I realize. But like, I will see these videos online sometimes from pediatric physical therapists of a little kid, barely a toddler, with their AFOs, their kind of braces on their legs or arms, being positioned by maybe therapist and mom and scream crying. I mean, this kid is deeply upset by what is happening. They don't look comfortable. They don't look happy. They're clearly not having fun. But this is necessary for them to progress. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with productive struggle. We run into this a lot as therapists because kids are in our speech rooms because something is not progressing as it should. Something there's a breakdown somewhere, there's a deficit somewhere that we are addressing in therapy. So what that looks like in practice is that kids are coming to us to do a bunch of stuff that they're bad at and they don't like.
Yeah, no, I really describe coming to the speech room and doing speech and language therapy like a workout for your brain. Like that's what we're
Yes.
doing. We're really stretching the brain kind of like you would a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. And I have kids get frustrated at me. One of the funniest interactions I ever had with a kid was because he was getting frustrated during language therapy and he told me I smelled like bug spray and that he hated bug spray. And
it's also such a long walk to an insult of like,
right?
Miss Hubbard, you smell like bug spray. And
I still think about that.
Bug spray.
I think about that all the time. Anyways,
So
but
funny.
he was getting mad at me because we were working on semantic networking skills and he was getting frustrated that he couldn't think of the answer. And so I get it. It's really hard, but that struggle is sometimes so important because we need to get to that end result. And so productive struggle. It is obviously you don't want to cause needless frustration or things like that. So give them support where you need to. But we have to work through that frustration level because we're working on a skill. I don't know if anybody has ever tried to learn how to like crochet or something like that. There is a big period when you're learning a new skill where you're like, what? I am frustrated at this. I can't figure it out. And kids experience that too. We have the capacity to set it down and walk away. Unfortunately, in the therapy space, you're stuck with me.
Well, and so you said like we have the capacity to set it down. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a skill that like a lot of adults don't have either. And I'm speaking a little bit about myself of like when there's stuff that I hate and is hard for me, it takes a lot of mental effort for me to think to myself, this is productive struggle. I'm not good at this right now. I need to keep going anyway. That's emotionally a big lift. And so when we're asking little kids to do hard work without being frustrated, or if we're trying to mask struggle and difficulty with fun, and making every second of every therapy session fun and enjoyable, they are never upset, they're never frustrated. We are not giving them the tools to be that adult that can set down the crochet because they're about to lose it, walk away, cool off, and come back and try again. So like and to be able to walk a child through this, you have to have those skills yourself, which
that's hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard. It takes doing the work yourself, and it takes having a lot of patience with the kid. So like, I think that a lot, and you said before too, this is a tough one for you. You have to kind of sit back and like bite your lip.
I want to help them so bad.
Yep.
I want to help them so bad. And I am sometimes an over supporter during therapy sessions. And I have to be really, really mindful of the cues that I'm giving, of the supports that I'm giving when we're working on things, because I just want to help. Same thing goes for when like I need to be a better interprofessional collaborator. I got to let them open those containers. The minute that I have a kid starting to struggle, I'm like, do you want help? And I need to shut up.
Let them work on that OT
Let them
goal.
do it. Let them do it, and then let them ask for help. Francie, do not prompt them, girl. I am an over-prompter on this, and so it's really hard because you want to be helpful, but I have to remind myself that I cannot be a lawnmower therapist, in which I am mowing down the obstacles in front of them. And so that is my complex relationship with productive struggle because I just want to help.
It is really hard. And I remember working with a teacher in the past that we were working with a student that was learning a lot of skills and cried a lot. Was really upset often. And she said at one point, like, we were both working with this student simultaneously, and they were crying, they were upset. We weren't hurting them. We weren't doing anything wrong. We were prompting and providing supports. And also the task was, we had a timer set for like 2 minutes or something. It was not going to be a long time. But the kid was really upset, and I made some face or said like, oh, like they're so upset. I like voiced my frustration with the situation out loud, and she goes, it's okay for him to be mad. Like being mad is not going to kill him. And I like, it is right. It sounds really callous, but like being mad is not going to kill them, especially if it's for the for long-term progress. And it's not just needless frustration. You know what I'm saying?
One of the best things that we can do is help to provide the skills to work through those frustration moments. Like that is only empowering your child to take on more skills and gaining more. Maybe it's things like crafts, or maybe it's other life skills. Like it just gives them the um motivation and the confidence that I got through this one time, and yes, I was frustrated, but I did it, and I can do it again. So like it's so hard to watch, but it is such a valuable skill that will carry them through their life in being able to learn new things. So yeah, it's huge.
When I have a student that takes this especially hard, and some kids like don't take failure really hard. Sometimes they're more like kind of roll with the punches. Some kids really internalize, take that to heart. So if I have a student that really internalizes failure or struggle, or does a lot of negative self-talk and stuff, I try to support them as little as possible through the task that's difficult. Support them like just what they need, not being that lawnmower therapist of like mowing down every obstacle. And then when we get to the end and they like had finished the task, I throw a freaking party. Like I shower them with praise I'm like, I saw that you were frustrated and you did the work anyway. And look at how good you did. I'm so proud of you. Are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of what you did? Like, and I mean, like, absolutely just celebrate. And that is that kind of teaching that, like, okay, when we get through this part that's hard, there's a reward at the end of like, I did a good job. I made progress today. And that feels really good.
That feels really good. Childhood is such a magical thing. And I reference that a lot because I really do think it is. But it is definitely a totally different beast than the rest of adulthood. And it is such a short period of time in our lives, but it is such a vital point in our lives. And so I hope do you have any other final thoughts before we kind of close this up?
Kids are learning and we are the teachers as adults. So like they will carry out what we teach them. And so if a child is, and I'm not talking about outlier stuff of like if there is a disorder or some kind of disruption in development, I'm talking about kind of like your garden variety kiddo who is just learning and growing. Like it is kind of like a you reap what you sow type of a situation with working with them of like, okay, if I have not held boundaries in the speech room and I have let this kid be in charge, then yeah, when I try to flip that switch and have me, the adult, be in charge, I'm going to run into some resistance. It is that kind of like, so yeah, to some, I would say like kids are learning and we are the teachers. So
I would say I completely agree with that. And I would even expand on that to say kids are learning, give them the grace to learn. I feel like so often in public, people are very critical about children, specifically when children are having kind of melts, and they're very critical of parents with that. So often parents are parenting for the first time and kids are learning how to be a human for the first time. So we got to give some grace to our fellow man in the rearing of children. It's hard.
yes.
And children should be able to exist in society without being criticized because they are new here, and be kind to them because of that. So
yeah. And like going off of that too, like kids deserve grace, but like so do parents. We. So do the adults, because oh gosh, I am such a huge fan of apologizing to kids.
Oh, especially big time. Like, I apologize all the time because I make mistakes and I am not perfect, and I want them to know that.
Yes, and I have absolutely suffered the consequences of my own behavior with a student where like I enforced a boundary that I didn't set clearly. And it was the confusion and the frustration that caused the child to melt down. And that's me. That's not the kid. I messed up. I didn't make the rules clear. And so like, then being able to like think through the situation, realize my own fault in it, say like, it's okay because there will be a next time and I'm going to do better next time. So kids deserve grace, but so do adults. And we don't have to be perfect every single time.
We don't have to be perfect. And kind of the last note that I want to end on is one of the things that will help you through those moments of imperfection is having a really awesome relationship with your kids, both a therapeutic relationship and also a parenting relationship. When we have strong rapport that's built on a foundation of trust and respect, it just opens the doorways to have easier conversations going forward and easier repairing in the moments when we don't have the most grace for each other too. So love each other more. That's what I got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I hope that you have enjoyed two childless women talk to you about parenting. I just want to be very clear that like I'm not a parent, and so yeah, we know, we hear it.
We hear it.
But like we love kids. We have an amazing amount of respect, or just a tremendous amount of respect for kids. And want to set as many kids up for success as we possibly can.
And parents. And parents. Our job is to be able to communicate with children. And we set out and we paid a lot of money to be able to do that. And we want to share those skills with you. So you guys don't have to pay a lot of money to do that.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, those are just some of our thoughts on child development, some behavior strategies that hopefully are helpful to you if you're a parent, a teacher, or another therapist listening to this. We hope this helps a little bit. Thank you for listening to Tell Me About It. You can find us on YouTube at Tell Me About It and SLP Podcast. We are on Spotify under the same name, and we are on Instagram at Tell Me About It SLP. We will see you next time. Goodbye. Bye.